My name is Ken Brott and I'm with DRB Systems. Today I'd like to take a few moments to present an interesting line of thinking about monthly pass plans. We wonder if someday some brave car washer out there might not decide to go what we're going to call all subscription. What we mean by that is every time a customer pulls in, their only option is to join the monthly pass club. They can't pay for an individual car wash. So to kind of lay the groundwork for this idea, let's take a look at some numbers. Let's say we have a mythical car wash that does 60,000 cars a year and they average $10 per car. Now that would give us about $600,000 in revenue. We at DRB Systems know from having done dozens of studies that a typical car wash will see that about 40% of their annual volume is represented by individual license plates. In other words, in this particular case, of this 60,000 car annual car count, about 24,000 of those are individual customers or individually tracked license plates. So in this case, we're going to say we have 24,000 individual customers. Now, let's pretend at this car wash that we offer an outrageously great deal of $5 per month, monthly charge, all-you-can-eat car washing. So every time you come in, as long as you've paid your $5 per month, car washing is free. If we multiply that $5 times the 12 months in a year, that'd give us $60 of annual revenue. Then if we multiply that by our 24,000 individual license plates, that gives us a pretty surprising number of $1.44 million in revenue, substantially higher than the $600,000 that we started with. Now, some of you are saying, and I'd be right there with you, that there's no way that all 24,000 individual customers at your car wash are going to sign up for this. There's going to be issues of privacy where they don't want to give up their credit card, commitment issues where they're not willing to say, this is the car wash I want to wash at. But you have to admit the $60 a year for unlimited car washing is a pretty good deal. And so we still think half of your customer base would say, sure, let's go for it. Well, that gives us 12,000 individual cars. And if we multiply that by the $60 per month or per year in annual revenue, that comes to $720,000 in revenue for the whole year, or a 20% increase over our starting point. So what got us to thinking about this kind of crazy idea? Well, way back when we started thinking about monthly pass plans, we happened to read an article in the Wall Street Journal about health clubs, and it was about this health club magnate. He owned a bunch of clubs down, I think, in Texas. Well, a comment that was made by this gentleman that caught our eye was that without monthly plans, without his customers paying monthly, he would not have a business. His point was he could not charge per visit and expect that to work in his business model. And when you think a little bit about the health club model, you can see how he got to that. It's a lot of sunk cost up front. Barbells, the exercise equipment, the rooms, the building that you set up, big upfront cost, but not so much ongoing cost. Sure, you've got the cost of the staff, wash the towels, the electricity to run the place, but not at all like, say, a business like a Target or a Walmart who have ongoing cost of goods sold. This is much more of a service kind of thing, but the service is a barbell, and after all, a barbell, whether it gets lifted 50 times in a day or 75 times a day, probably doesn't make much difference on the overall life of this hunk of metal with rubber on both ends. So you can understand in this individual's case, he's not so concerned about how many times people come in. He's more concerned that he gets that monthly fee to cover his costs. Well, this reminds us of Netflix as well. Netflix has, they buy those videos up front. The number of times that video gets watched really makes very little difference to them. Naturally, they have to have the inventory in stock, but they don't mind that you watch as many videos as you can throughout the month. And I'm not sure that they have unlimited plans. Maybe they do. In our family, our membership is such that we can watch as many times as we can fit into our schedule. Well, then that got us thinking about car washes. Car washes are not dissimilar from this model in the sense that we build this big building, we populate it with equipment in the tunnel, and the ongoing costs are not as high. Now, they'd be higher than, say, the health club, but to paraphrase a very good car washer friend of mine, he would talk about how the difference in cost at his wash that day between washing 300 and say 310 cars was so small as to be difficult to even measure appropriately. That incremental car that gets washed represents very little cost, and really his goal was to keep the tunnel as full as he possibly could. So we thought this industry was perhaps ripe for this idea of monthly passes. And now, back to the original point, maybe it's also ripe for somebody to be solely an individual or a monthly pass kind of car wash. So maybe some brave soul will go for that. That'll be very interesting to watch. Naturally, if we see it, we'll report back to you. Well, I appreciate your time today and welcome any feedback that you might have on the idea.